Hi, everyone. So excited to be here again, especially with my good friend Jason Gerardo. And Jason's been out for a week or two, but for good reason, having a time to reflect and review, but back strong as ever. And our word of the day is opportunity. So I'd love to hear what everybody has to say out there. Always relying on quality comments to direct us in the most relevant ways to provide quality takeaways. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Jason, and Jason can give you a quick update and initial thoughts on opportunity.
All right, thanks, Don. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back with the community. As you said, I took a vacation about a week and a half. My wife and I went back to North Carolina, where she's from, visited her mom and her sister and her husband, and we hung out and saw the niece and nephew, which are one just graduated from UNC last year, and the other one's is going to be a senior this year. So it's good to see them. Haven't seen them since they were little guys. Uh, I was sharing offline where it was nice that I didn't realize how hard I'd been running until I stopped running and finding those opportunities in life. But I had to make sure I took care of myself as well. One of the great things I want to say, I'll start off with this: opportunity is not about making opportunities. Opportunity is about seeing opportunities. This world is full. The universe says yes. That's all the universe says is yes. And if you're looking for something that's not going to appear, it's going to not appear. But if you're looking for the opportunities that are available to you and taking those paths, you'll find your life will change drastically. So I'll start with that, where opportunity is not about having to make it happen or whatever. It's about being open to what is there for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to launch this show. Is opportunity knocks, but you got to be able to open the door when it does knock. And there's a saying that luck is when preparation meets opportunity,
Right.
and opportunity usually comes with some preparation, so they're not totally independent. And when you can kind of connect the dots between effort and results, you'll have a much better opportunity to achieve a better opportunity. And I think those are important. And, the other qualification is I've always kind of changed the wording in some things is instead of winning and losing, you're winning and learning.
Right.
So, if you haven't got the prize, hopefully you're getting closer to it. And the other thing is being able to appreciate an opportunity and a successful initiative so that you can build on it. And some people take it for granted, or they think once they're there, they'll always be there. But what got you there is needs to continue to take you further places. And the other element, bigger opportunities involve bigger relationships with others. Jason always says if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. It's a much enjoyable ride. And eventually you're going to need people, whether it's your own opportunity and you're going solo, or build it into it when you first get going, so everybody gets a chance to know each other, make some errors along the way that, when you finally put the pedal to the metal, you really can accelerate. Carrie's here and says, what's a dictionary's favorite type of exercise? Alphabet aerobics. Good for you. Uh, okay, and he's got his desktop running. I guess since it's over 13, it needs a nap over the weekend. Well, the main thing is it's running, and all you need to do is run with it. So, when did you start to realize maybe the differential in what you used to think about opportunities and what you've grown to learn about opportunities, Jason?
You know, that was a slow path, unfortunately, and that's why I do what I do, is because it took me 48 years to fully step into my purpose and to be able to see that. And through that process, I learned just what I was saying, that you think it's going to happen one way, so you're so busy looking to, let's say, for example, looking to the left. What's coming for me is coming from my left, but you can't see that it's actually over on your right saying, hey, I'm right here, just look over here. You get so dead set on that. And that's what I was doing, is I was so set on how I had to be and what I had to do and how I was going to achieve what I wanted to, how I was going to show up in the world to get what I wanted, that the universe, my wife, I give her a lot of credit for what I do because I am who I am. And, I've done a lot of studying and a lot of soul searching and stuff to get here. But she's been my biggest cheerleader. And, she would always say, how many more signs do you need from the universe to know that you're not where you're supposed to be? And that was about opportunity, is that I kept avoiding opportunity to stick with what was known. Well, I know this, and I think this is going to get me what I want to get. So over the years, it was, like I said, it was a hard-won battle that I struggled with that. And you said you're either winning or learning. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. And it took some time. It really took some time for me to, it's about release. That's not the word of the day today, but release and let go and say, you know what? I know what's going to show up for me is there. And I have to step back. The example I was thinking, the shower thoughts, thinking about today's talk, a conversation today, and I was thinking about opportunity. And I was thinking, as the example, if you're holding a handful of rocks and pebbles, there's no room to put that piece of gold that's out there. So you have to let go of what's not serving you. And that was my lesson. That was my learning. Was I kept collecting those pebbles. I kept saying, well, this is one more pebble, that's going to get it. One more pebble, that's going to get it. Not realizing I had to let those pebbles go to put the gold back in my hands. So it was a journey. And honestly, I'll be, what year is this? I'll be 53 next month. And it literally took me 48 years to get to the point where I'm at, to really see opportunities in my life and to take advantage of them.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because some people never find out their true purpose, or if they do, they can't, for whatever reason, take advantage of it. And the other element is learning what not to do and which people not to do it with.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, the minuses kind of take out the pluses and vice versa. And all you've gotten is twice as much activity with no further progress. It's that one step forward, two steps back. So, all you have that's the most precious element is time. How you invest that time, who you invest it with, and you're better off not investing in something that is going to take you off course or bring you with people who will distract or maybe redirect your time and attention. And all of a sudden you're on somebody else's course without having any real meaning to your course. So again, it's picking and choosing. The other thing about opportunity is it takes hard work. There may be a few people that win the lottery, but not in relationship to how many tickets are sold.
Right.
And, it's not something I would go to sleep at night feeling comfortable that tomorrow everything is going to pay off. And, the investment in opportunity is really the investment in yourself.
Right.
For things to get better, you have to be better. And that's part of the preparation, understanding. The other thing is about a slow go is that it gives you time to enjoy the ride. It gives you opportunity to reflect and review as you go. The person who wins the lottery today is going to get swept into a world they're not familiar with. It's going to change all the dynamics in their life, whether it's friends and work and everything else. And most of these people aren't prepared for it. So getting it and losing it is probably no better than never having it and never losing it. There's that saying, it's better to be in the dark and stay there than go towards the light and then go back to the dark. Because once you've seen what you've seen, you can't unsee it, and it makes you disappointed. So, it's like almost got it. It's the fish that got away, or the putt that just rimmed the hole and didn't go in. Those are pictures that may play in your future ages, thinking back, which just builds regret, and disappointment and frustration. And some of the saddest people really were some of the most successful people that, for whatever reason, their fault or just by accident, it disappeared on them. But what I do know is what serves you best are the people in your life who will be there no matter what. And some people, and I'll put my wife in that category, or have always been best when things were worst. There's a lot of people that go for the blame game or woulda, coulda, shoulda, as opposed to, okay, where are we? What do we got to do now? Where do we start from? And let's start building back. And it's a continuum. There is no straight line to opportunity or success. If there was, you'd see more people. And everybody you see that people consider an overnight success might have taken 20 years to get there,
Right.
but they don't appreciate the practice, the frustration, the effort, the sacrifice that people go through to get successful. And I think the most successful people are the ones that bring others with them.
Yeah.
There's another saying, it's lonely at the top. One of the saddest things about achieving the summit is looking around and there's nobody to celebrate with, nobody enjoy the journey. And most people might have got there by stepping on a lot of people and not encouraging them. And that just sustains itself and replicates itself going forward. So, I'm sure there's plenty of books on opportunity, but I'm sure those books relate to life lessons. And I think that's always a good course, is to read other successful people's uh, background and biography. Actually, I just started Al Pacino's life story, which just came out yesterday. And I'm at the point where he's now 11 years old. So there's a lot of book ahead of me. But it's interesting is that you find all these people really had a lot of similar experiences you did, and they're not that much different. Too many people are into idol gazing and star worshiping and just touching the person, just getting an autograph from them makes them feel like, and there are people who pay huge amounts of money for a piece of paper with a name on it.
Right.
I haven't gotten to that point. Hopefully I never will. What's your thoughts, Jason?
It's so true, and that's something kind of going sideways with your comment. That's something that I've never had too much issue with, but I do the issue that I have is big, and I'll say that. So what I mean by that is that I'm not starstruck. I had the opportunity to live in the LA area for a while, and I saw a lot of stars, and it was cool, and it was like, ooh, that's so and so, and that's so and so, and they would come into the shop that I worked at, and that was fun and neat and interesting, but never intimidated. I'll talk to anybody. The ones that I am challenged to talk to, though, I'm saying the ones that I have are big, are the ones that are doing what I want to do. The people that are the speakers and the ones that are in front of people and the ones that are doing your Dan Millmans and your Wayne Dyers and Henry Rollins and people that have done what I want to do. I really respect them. So I hold a little bit too much reverence. But in the last few years, part of my journey has been to say, you know what, they're people. And they're not just people, because no one's just. We are all amazing people. And so, but they are a human like me. And so to really feel that, and to your point, looking at their journey, you can learn something from it. And it's not to say, in NLP, we do modeling, and which is taking someone that has excellence in an area, and then you see what it takes for them to achieve what they achieved. So there is a part of that, but you're on your own journey and you have to find your own opportunities. However, looking at what they have done and how they got there might spark something within you. And that's the key. That's the brilliance of any book. I always say that the value of any book is not the binding or the ink on the page or the writing on there. It's what it brings out of you. And that's the same thing about having yourself in a community. It's not about necessarily about what the people can do for you externally, but what they can help spark with you internally. And that's something that's amazing to me. I do want to mention this and take a moment, Don. I know you're very humble about this, but about your LinkedIn Live and your community that you've built. And I have a lot of respect for you in many ways because of what you've achieved and what you've done and beyond this program. But we'll talk specifically about this program. You built this and you were doing it every day every day for a couple of years, and I can't imagine. It's, some of us have trouble getting on once or twice a week. And so much respect for that. But you were dedicated and you were looking for opportunity. You weren't waiting for something to happen, and you were making things happen. And then you shifted. You said, well, that's, you know what, I'm doing this, and that's not getting me the results I wanted. So you shifted, and then you kind of reformat. And I think honestly, this was a conversation that was going to be off screen, but I'll just say it on screen. I think you're going to have to shift again, because the people that you've supported through this, which are all amazing people in and of themselves, but have this program has helped them to springboard to even greater things. So they're now doing their own programs, and they're now seeing new things, and they've grown and exponentially, I believe. And so now you have to build up this community again. You have to get some more folks to join you every day, because everyone's so busy doing the amazing things that they do. And that speaks volumes to the community that you brought together and this platform that you've built for all of us, which is amazing. And when we started, when you and I think we know Tara. I think that I look at you talk about people as I don't know them, but then I'm like, well, I know that person, and I know Jenny, and I know Tara, and I know. So I think we connected through that. But however we connected, it was meant to be. And I join you on this journey, and it's helped me so much. It's helped me. But when I started, I wasn't like, oh, here's an opportunity, and I'm going to take advantage of this. It was, hey, this looks like something that's good. This is something that I can do. This is something that I'd like to see if it works for me and be a part of. And that was my toe in the water. And it's opened up many doors, and much success has come, maybe not necessarily exactly from this, but it's open opportunities that have done that for me. And so that's what I was saying earlier. The opportunities are there, but you have to just be open to what's showing up. So not like if people are approaching you, hey, John, I want to be on your show because I want to be internet famous, or I want to join you because I want to do what Con and Kelly and Carl and Dave and Leslie and Beverly and so on are doing, because they're doing amazing things. That may not be the right approach. But if you like, hey, let's see what this is for and what can I do for that, I think that's the key. And so I do want to give you kudos, and I did want to mention that sometimes you don't see the end, but know that doing the work could pay off.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And I know it's sincere and genuine, and that's important. And it's a discipline that people either need to learn or grow with, is persistence. I remember as a kid, my biggest every summer would be to play baseball. And as soon as I could get out of the house, I'd grab my glove, and the school was probably 2 blocks away. Must have been 8, 9, 10 years old. Back then, at 8 years old, no one really thought anything would ever happen to you, and everybody had their doors open. And you go to the field, and I went there every day, and I played every day. And I didn't play well. I was not the number 4 hitter. I was usually the last guy to get up, and sometimes when it was close, they'd pull me out and put some better player in. But it never affected my love for the game and the joy of doing it. And whether I didn't feel good or not didn't matter. I was driven to be there. I couldn't have done this show so many days in a row if I didn't look forward to the person I was talking to. Right. To me, it was another conversation. And over time, I've changed it to style to a more, in small towns, you got hardware stores, and most people gather around the pickle barrel, or, they got a diner, right? And a lot of people show up every day and have breakfast together, especially in rural communities. Could be 6:30 in the morning, have the same gang there. And they use that for support. They use that for camaraderie and information. And to your point, you need to be open to walking through the door to opportunity, not the opportunity itself. And usually what that supports is curiosity. Yeah. What if, what is behind the corner? What's behind the screen? I'm tempted to take a look. And if that takes slipping and falling or embarrassing oneself, then so be it, because that needed to be hardened. I just started some resistance training, and I have never really done that. I'm usually more cardio, walking, things like that. And gosh, the first time I picked up those weights, they feel like 100 pounds, and they weren't very much.
Right.
So it took me a while, and I'm getting better every day. And now I ordered dumbbells with more weight, not much more, but it's going to keep moving up the scale. And I'm fascinated by the way one can improve themselves by themselves while they're waiting for someone else or something else to show up. And every time you can improve your health, your mental well-being, your relationships, you're adding value to your universe and yourself. And most people are at the point where if they don't give me enough money, I'm not doing it. Or when this happens, that happens. And you know what? You lost all those opportunities to practice, because not doing something is a definite no-go as far as progress. And actually, it could be regressive, because now you got excess time. You start watching crazy videos or social media, and before you know it, hours have gone by, and all you did was get a couple chuckles, but then that sets a pattern for the next day. And pretty soon you're choosing between non-essential, non-beneficial things. And I think one more thing, if it wasn't for having a quality family life and relationships, I probably wouldn't be who I am today, because it was just me, myself, and I wouldn't have that. Well, if it was up to me, I wouldn't do it, but I got people depending on me, or
Right.
I got people doing a lot for me. I need to repay them in supporting them. And it's not just a matter of, hey, how much money did you make today? But what kind of person are you coming home to everybody as? You've got these high-end people who are making oodles of money. Kids never know who they are, where they are. Spouses are waiting around for a week to see someone, versus a person that's just the everyday person. And I think they have, in a lot of ways, a better life, because they don't have to worry about going into a restaurant and having 10 people recognize them. They don't have to worry about being seen somewhere and then something taking it out of uh, uh, perspective. So I think it's, you got to be happy from a standpoint of being having humility, being modest. I always go back, and I've suffered major disappointments in business and in life, but everybody does. And when you understand, it's just a matter of when's your time.
Right.
Someone could say, I've never been sick in my life. Well, one day you will. Everything will catch up to everybody. And that's a great thing to be able to say, but it's not something I would depend on to continue one's health without continuing to modify. And getting back to the show, to me now, it's like, hey, pull up a chair, let's sit down, have a conversation. So, whoever wants to join, as long as they want to join for the right intention and provide the right benefit. And usually people who are fair and honest minded want to return what's given. So if you go to somebody's house, you usually bring something. If it's like a dinner, could be a salad, could be flowers, it could be whatever you want to bring or you think you should bring. And it gets reciprocal. All of these people that are working together, like Kelly and everybody else, they see the benefit of helping others, supporting each other, because everybody's success becomes everybody else's success once it's shared. It's like, okay, here's my money towards the event. Tell me what it was about. And now all of us can learn from one person if 6 people couldn't have gone to the event. And then people want to be fair because they feel better. It's not only because of obligation. It's not a good thing when you say, I have to do something versus I want to do something, or no problem. Someone says, I can't get around. Can you go to the store and pick something up for me? Everybody's got that 30 minutes or 45 minutes to say, sure, not a problem. And I understand, because 2 things. You want to help the person, but you also want to build that, I was there for you. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity. It's funny with family, friends even. You can go into their house and they'll serve you $100 dinner, break open an expensive bottle of wine, think nothing of it. But if you say, hey, I could use $100, oh my God, it's money. They want money from us,
Right.
even though you would have spent that much without even knowing it. And you wonder, okay, what distinguishes someone being charitable? Is it something they have so much of that they don't mind giving because they got plenty? Or is it like the person who shares that sandwich with you,
Yeah.
right? And now everybody can have something to eat. And to me, that's the bigger gift. Who gives what they don't have for the right reasons? And in relationship, what's important to people? And usually I love to leave people happier than I found them, better than I found them, because in a way it's kind of your legacy.
Right.
Those things will live on beyond you. I mean, there's people listening to this that will never know or see, who could pick up something Jason just said or I just said. And that's the missing piece. To Jason's point, when I was listening to the Audible today, he was talking about his grandfather. And immediately it made me feel that's just like my grandfather was. And, it's a gift that, okay, now not only did I connect with the story, but I connected with my past in a way that I would have never found that route. And it gave me a little bit of appreciation or satisfaction. And you got to remember where you come from, because a lot of times you're going back there. And, how are you going to go back there in the right way? I know people go to high school reunions. And it's kind of funny. The high school I went to, I never had a reunion. It was just a very challenging place. But my wife always loved going back to her reunions. And, at 10 years, everybody's like, what are you doing? What are
Right.
you making? Everybody's like, 25 years. It's like, well, what house do you have? When you get beyond that, it's like everybody's comparing blood pressures. Everybody's
Yeah.
working on health, all those. Nobody cares about that GTO that you always loved when you were 18 or something. And life changes, and that means you have to expect to make changes. And there's so many people who won't. How many people hold on to youth when it's gone? I mean, guys who have one strand of hair and they figure a way of wrapping it around enough times to make like they have hair, or people that go through cosmetic surgery and they look just fine to everybody. And now all of a sudden they're into this artificial false things. And I'm, again, no judgment. Everybody is different. Everybody should do what they believe they should do. But, how much is it is shared and invested in the people? And a lot of times, all you need is what you have. Too many people always say, well, if I get this, and when I get this, and when this happens, okay, now I'll be ready. Well, if you keep thinking like that, you're never going to be ready, because it's like, okay, well, if I just went one more step, or even people losing weight,
Right.
I've lost quite a bit of weight on purpose. And now I'm down to the weight I was in my 20s. It took me about 2-3 months, and I did it gradually, half a pound a week, nothing special, nothing heavy. And eventually you get there, and then you think, well, why not keep going? And that's not the right idea. I always believe when you had enough, let the other person have their enough. Leave something on the table. Even in business, I would always say, hey, I'll leave a few things on the table just in case I made a mistake. And I never had another job after working in a grocery store. But a lot of people say, well, how much should I pay you? And I always sometimes say a little bit less than I'm worth, So, if you're going to pay me 50 an hour, give me 48, right? It's okay. Because I don't really care about the last drop or the last dime, but I want to show that I'm willing to give a little concession just to be fair. And like I say, in my retail days, I always made deals after I collected the money. So a guy would buy an air compressor, pay for it on the way out. I would say, hey, you've been a great customer. I really love seeing you. Here's 25 foot of air hose for it on the house.
Right.
And primarily because I didn't have to do it and they knew it. And if I did it in advance, every time they come in the store, it's like, what's the deal? You can work me today.
Right.
And I wanted to have a basis to say, because you're such a great customer, and when you come in here, you really appreciate the store and the inventory, and I love talking with you. So you've given somebody a gift in addition to making a sale. You went beyond, and I used to tell everybody on my staff, make a friend, then make a sale, because if you don't make a sale, you still got a friend, and next time they come in, they remember who they were. The restaurants I used to always go to, I knew the owners, they knew me. They would go out of their way to find a nice table or say, here's a dessert I just had, and I want to share it with you. And that makes a difference. How people make you feel is how you respond to them in the future. And kindness, generosity, respect, things that are so rare because not people don't have the ability, they don't think they have the time.
Right.
Hurry up, let's get out of here. We got to go somewhere else, and then some people say, hurry, get out of here. We got nowhere to go. And I'm thinking, where's the hurry? And I encounter those people all the time. Is like, we're supposed to be here and everybody's waiting until, well, it's going to take 10 minutes to get there. Let's leave 12 minutes in advance. While we sit around for 10 minutes doing nothing,
Right.
afraid that maybe we'll get there 5 minutes early and we'll have to sit there instead of sitting here. It's just very beautiful in the way life is structured, is that there is mystery to every day. You wake up thinking about something, and at the end of the night, you deal with something you never expected. And what your other worries were become small compared to now something significant. So, Jason, looks like you've had a great opportunity to evolve over time and review things around you. Going forward, how do you see yourself continually evolving?
The one bit of advice that I give anyone that asks me for advice, rather, or like I mentioned before, I work with high school students. I go and do interviews and I do some presentations at the local high school and things of that nature. And I always leave them with having a curious and flexible mindset. And that's what made the shift for me, is really acknowledging, and I've always been that way, but really quantifying it and saying, oh, this is what I'm doing. And being curious and saying, what's that? And we were talking about that earlier, what's this, what's that? Looking for different ways to achieve things. And then being flexible in my mindset, not having a fixed mindset, not saying, well, this is the only way that can happen. This is the only way it's going to show up. And I've had plenty of lessons. I've had my company for 10 years now. I've been doing it full time. This September was the 3-year mark for going completely full time with my company. And there's been a lot of lessons in that. There's been a lot of learnings and, things not showing up the way I thought they were going to show up. And so in that you talk about building muscle, that built that internal muscle for me, where now I'm stronger. Now I can look at things differently. Now I see, hey, maybe this is an opportunity. How else? I just had a conversation with my wife last night about, for my business, like other ways of making money and growing my business other than what I'm doing now, and being open to that. And I kind of fell into some things that I was like, hey, let's just do this. My wife actually brought some stuff to me and said, hey, can we do this? Try this class. And we taught a class together, and it worked out really well. And I was like, oh, okay. So doing more of that. So being open to things of that nature. I just brought on a client that, talking about overnight success taking time, that I've known for a couple of years now, and we're on a board together. And he had mentioned to me, hey, I want to talk to you about what you do. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then he actually scheduled a discovery call as a client. And I didn't know that's what he had meant. So I was like, okay. So we talked, and we're going to work together. Well, he said he's opened it up so I can kind of say a little bit. So he's a superintendent of the place where he works. He's kind of higher up. And he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to have my board pay for these sessions. So can you make me a proposal? And I'd never done that before. I hadn't really looked at it because the work that I do is my one-on-one work is more individual, and it's a little different than that. But I said, sure. So I wrote a proposal. I had my friend Chat GPT and me got together and made a proposal. And he said, well, tweak it a little bit, a little less information. So I did that. It worked out. He said he turned it to the boards. And so the board paid for a 6-month package for him. So that's an opportunity that I hadn't looked at and thought about before. In the back of my mind, my mentor had said, oh, these are some options that you can do going into education, things of that nature. But I'd never seen that opportunity. I hadn't really looked for it, but it showed up, and you bet I took advantage of it. You bet I said, hey, I can do this. And so that's how I've approached things. It might not be exactly how I thought it was going to work out, but maybe the universe is saying, hey, this is more opportunity, and being open to it. So that's the mindset that's changed that I've had, is saying, it doesn't have to be the way it is. At the same time, this last week, I just turned down a client because he approached me and he wanted me to teach him NLP. And he had no training yet. And I'm not a trainer in NLP. I'm a master practitioner, and I'm not a trained trainer. And if he had his practitioner, I'd be more than happy to help him get to the next level, because I'm pretty educated in this stuff. But I wasn't comfortable with it. And so I said, no. I said, let me connect you with someone else who I know is a trainer that is similar to my style, that I think would work well with you. And I turned him over. So that was an opportunity that showed up, that I had to be honest with myself and say, that's not what's best for him, and that's not what's best for me. So it's not, you just take whatever the universe gives you and just shows up. You still have to have some filters and still say, well, that's not for me, and that is for me. But the beauty is that those opportunities are showing up, and I have the ability to look at them and make a decision, and a decision based on who I can be, not on who I necessarily am.
Yeah, that's a great quality insight and point that you just shared, because I'm doing that all the time. In the beginning was, you feel gratified somebody will be on your show, and you start having so many opportunities to get people. And honestly, out of the 1,000 shows I've probably done, probably 150 to 200 were with different people. And at a certain point, you got to figure what is sustainable, what is transactional, what is relationship oriented. And I came up with this saying that if it doesn't have a future, it shouldn't have a present. Because why start something that's a one and done to begin with? You could force it, maybe get 2 or 3 out of it. And to your earlier point, you're very insightful in, it's better to drill deeper than wider. It's better to do more with less people than less with more people. And, with all the people I'm working with, the beauty of them becoming more and more confident, more and more successful, better than me in a lot of areas, because that's their forte and that's their direction, it's like gold mining. It's like a vein. And if you dig deep enough, you can really take advantage of that vein. And, Carl's got 2 other people who now want to do a show. Kelly's working on opportunities. Harvey and me are working on opportunities. So, it's getting them up, then seeing them actually accelerate in ways that you can't or won't or have already done, and then come back around and say, we've worked so well at this level, now we have an expanded area that we can combine with. Or, hey, your forte is this. Every time I have somebody who needs that, knowledge, I don't want to have to learn it. I don't want to have to be proficient at it. If you are even more proficient, hey, come on in. I've got something for you. And because we are on a pathfinder and opening roads and going to places nobody else is really spending a lot of time at, sometimes you got to let it grow into you. I had a partner, like I always mention, who is a billionaire in today's dollar terms. And the way he made all his money is he came back from World War II. He was from Detroit. And in 1950, Detroit was the fastest growing city in the world. because of the war and everybody getting a car and then highways and everything else. It just came together. Well, because it was growing so fast, he would just buy land 5 miles outside of the latest growth. So, if Detroit was up to this level, he'd go out and where there were just farms, I guess, or country, buy a lot of land, wait 3, 4 years and have it grow into his land. And then because he owned lumber yards, he got into building and housing and everything else. Ultimately, he had 56,000 units that he had built, owned, and managed.
Wow.
Condos, townhouses all over the country. And it came from a simple principle, is to see where things are going, get there in advance, right? On a double play, the first baseman's got to get back to first base in order to make that happen now that we're in the World Series land. And I was actually rooting for my poor Tigers up until they got taken out by Cleveland. But that's, some things are just natural. Some things always work the same way as opposed to things that are dynamic every second. And he always taught me about principle, about buy low, sell high, about have a paid up inventory. You can't sell out of an empty wagon. Things like that were very easy to understand. And he just did it so well over and over again. He wasn't fancy. One of his whole things was, I never want to be in any publication, anything you say or write, be able to put it on the front page of a newspaper and feel comfortable about it. And that taught me to be discreet. There's so many people that gain some level of success, especially like sports guys or even record guys or gals. And all of a sudden they're the king of the mountain. And, they got their gold chains and they got their limos and they got all this stuff. And inside they're empty. Everything around them that was material became significant. And it usually came at the expense of good friends or family members who they were embarrassed of or just thought they were better than. And I learned over time, the same people you meet on the way up, you meet on the way down. And to be very thoughtful, because they may be the ones who have a lot of your future in their hands, people you didn't take full appreciation of or you took for granted. And there's another saying, you come into this world with nothing, the worst you can do is break even, right? So be thankful for what you have. Every time I've suffered a disappointment, it really made me appreciate what was truly important in my life, which was my wife, my kids, my friends, because I knew they're always going to be there for me, and they typically were. At the same time, you do get surprised. You think someone is with you, and then as soon as the rain starts falling, they're nowhere to be seen.
Right.
They're embarrassed, they're ashamed, they don't want any exposure, and that's hard, But at the same time, there's always a group of people you never knew were there for you, that come to your rescue, or at least get you to a point that says, it's okay, you're okay, I'm here with you, we can work together. And that made all the difference in the world, because you take a loss and you make a bigger loss out of it. And some people are afraid to show their true emotion, so they're always thinking, well, what are people expecting me to be or do? Some people go to funerals, they can't stop laughing. It's not any out of disrespect, it's just their natural tendency. And some people go and they can't stop crying, and it becomes a bigger event than the event they were in. But if you always look at things as fascinating instead of frustrating, if you say there's more I don't know, so why judge? And what's good for one may not be good for anybody, and that's okay too. Because there's usually people put themselves first and foremost when it comes to anything. What was my split? When am I going to eat? And if it's me, then after a while, you're never going to be a we person. You're never going to be accepted in that group because you're kind of showing your colors, and people start to get wary. Where the people who are most successful are the people who project the most confidence and success, even though they might not have achieved it. You know, the happy people, the people who are bouncing up and down and can't wait to get so enthusiastic. And that's where that whole saying, everybody hears your music before they care about your words, is people want uplifting. They want to be with somebody at the end of the day or at the end of a show that says, I'm a little bit better for this experience. I learned one more nugget from Jason. Or it started shaping my existing perspective a little bit. And when people say, hey, I just crossed a boundary nobody thought they could, it opens up the road for everybody. And a lot of it is, you know, I was listening to this book, can't even tell you what the name of it is, but it was from a gentleman from 1913. And he was one of the top people into personal development. Back then, there was a lot of movement into that area, that people were actually sharing how important your mind was and how important your attitude was and belief. And one of his, it was divided into 5 little books in one tape. And one was about wealth and how your attitude can shape your wealth. The next one was about wellness. And it said, unless you have a confident belief in your ability to heal yourself, you probably won't. And that's the added ingredient that now allows you to take a pill and believe, and that aligns with the placebo effect, which for some unknown reason keeps getting bigger every year. And I think it's up to about 40% now. And you can give somebody a sugar pill or the real pill, and 40% of the sugar pill people will still get the response as the people who took the medicine, because they believed it would work and their belief moved their body to change. And you know, that's a responsibility that we all have when we share things, is can this be used for betterment for others? So I know you have a deep heart, helping people, and sincerely enjoy seeing them, you know, be more successful, be more healthy. Where did that come from?
You know, it's my journey. It's been my calling. You know, we don't really talk much about this because it doesn't really fit into the kind of the context that we're talking. But what you just were talking about is my world. You know, talking about the quantum universe and how we create our own realities, and you know, placebo effect is just about belief. But so this has been a lifelong journey for me. I've always, from my earliest age, I knew I was a healer and a person that called upon to help others. And not to go into this whole story, but basically, I just always knew that I was here to help. I was here to support people. And through my journey of not being mentored and not being talked about, because it was kind of taboo subject, and it wasn't something that people talked about, you know, talking about early 70s, mid 70s, when I was born and growing up. And I pushed it aside, but I was always there, and I always found ways to help others. You know, working in retail leadership, I was able to help people that were starting their lives out. They were just getting out of high school, going into college, and trying to figure stuff out. And it just was always part of who I am, and it's always been there. And you know, there's certain things that we tell ourselves, oh, that's who I am, that don't serve us. Thankfully, this part serves me and the community. So it's a great belief to have for me to think that, you know, that's who I am. Part of who I am is that. And so it's just been part of my journey. It's just about wanting to help others. And I've seen what happens when you get help, and I've seen what happens when you don't get help. And I just recently, I work a lot in mental health, as people that know me, and you know me, of course. And I'm working with a group out of Sacramento County, actually. It's called Stop the Stigma. And it's about getting rid of the stigma of mental health so people can get the help they need. And I'm going to be a speaker and just do a little 10-minute kind of talk on my journey with mental health. And the story that I'm telling is about watching my mother and her mental health struggles, you know, once again in the mid 70s, whatever. So being a single mom, a single parent, which is a mother, dealing with two boys, two rambunctious boys. You know, I went into the Marine Corps. My brother's a fire captain. So we were, you know, very, very strong-willed little boys. But at that time, she couldn't get help. And and by that I mean that, well, people don't get in Tracy, California, people don't go see a therapist. That's for people in New York or LA, maybe San Francisco. And so for different reasons, she didn't get help, and she had a breakdown at one point. And I viewed that, and just through that lens, I was like, people need to get help. And whether I help them or I say something or do something that allows them to open that door to feel comfortable getting that help, that is my calling. That is my mission. So it's been from a very young age. And that's what started me on this journey.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I grew up, late 50s, 60s, and a lot of things were taboo, and you didn't have to be told. And a lot of people shied away from things,
Right.
and shied away from people who are different or weren't, let's say, normal, if there is something qualified as normal. And there was a lot of embarrassment. And I know even with Vietnam, so many people came home to an unwelcome welcome,
Right.
and had so many things that, weren't normal when they got here. I read this thing where 1 out of 6 soldiers in Vietnam were on heroin at one point.
Wow.
And when they came back, I think it went to maybe 1 out of 15. But no one even understood that. And nobody back then would say that because drugs were like really taboo.
Right.
And the other thing about being a soldier was, hey, a soldier is always strong. A soldier never cries. A soldier never complains. I mean, and that's where soldiering on kind of falls into place. And meanwhile, there's so many lives that were affected by stigma, by social convention, by the fear of, failure or disappointment. And hopefully, I always believed we were going to become more evolved as a world. And you do identify that people are just people, right? And it takes a long time for people to change, maybe thousands of years to add something. Maybe a 6 finger or something will come in a million years, but it moves slow, and the world moves fast. And I always equate it to like musical chairs. With less chairs and faster music, is the people that had a comfortable seat now either get thrown out or have to move up to a really comfortable seat, and it's getting squeezed. And I think it's really about, perspective, learning. Ignorance is not a blessing to anybody.
Yeah.
And as people know more and learn more, that's a value. But here's the rub. Now, because of everything being artificial, is there, you don't even know the reality anymore that you're dealing in. And most people don't like reality because it moves too slow and it's not as dramatic. I mean, if you look at movies, I grew up with black and white movies, no color, and no special effects. They had to depend on drama or music in the background. If something eerie was playing, some ghost or some monster was about to show up. But now it's like if people don't want reality. They want something that's beyond that, and it puts everybody in a bad position. And I've seen how people forecasting or predicting AI will be the end of the universe, because there's too many people who have a hard time just dealing with what they're dealing with. And when they can't shut off the noise and the information, it drives them to do things they would have never done, or pit them against people who should be their friends and collaborators, and now they're the enemy. And you're never going to get anywhere without responsibility and accountability. If all you can do is blame someone else and do it in loud words and mean words, it just breeds more of that in time. And hopefully live shows like this break through, because there isn't someone besides Jason on the screen right now. There
Right.
isn't a past or a future. There's only a present. Every word is unscripted. And I hope that is the answer, because I also believe everybody has been saying doom and gloom since go back thousands of years, and
Right.
the world was coming to an end and it didn't. And I think people are self serving enough that they hopefully won't let them slip over the edge. As I do believe in love is the answer for about everything.
Yeah.
And with any sort of hope, there is opportunity. If you can just see a light off in the distance, that'll give you enough to say, well, there is light there. Might
Right.
be a distance till I can get there. Maybe I'll never get there. And maybe I can help somebody else get to where I wanted to go and by getting halfway there. And that's why people should be appreciative and grateful for their parents and grandparents and great grandparents because they made a lot of sacrifices
Yeah.
for some people to go to school and they gave up their dreams to help other people with their dreams. And so, no one can take full responsibility for being successful and nobody should want to, and I think it's important, sometimes you have these acceptance speeches, right, at the Oscars or the Emmys or whatever you're into. And they go into my third grade teacher in math got me going. My eighth grade gym teacher made me this.
Right.
My aunt, who I only visited twice, shared something with me that I never forgot. And I think that gives us full circle to go back to when you started, it's those things that you can appreciate, the opportunities that you can see around you, not the ones you want to see around you.
Right.
That story about the guy who died waiting for God to save him,
I
right?
thought about that earlier.
It
Yeah.
was the boat that came and said, let me give you a ride. No, no, God will save me. And another rowboat came. When he went to heaven, it's like, why did you save me? So, well, I sent 3 different boats to get you. And
Right.
I think that stories sell, facts tell. Everybody wants to hear your story. They don't want to hear what they should do or what you think they should do. And that's another way to help people successful is, again, don't judge. You never know how sensitive someone is, how close to breaking they are. And if you say, well, you could have done better, and I've had friends, I know we're coming up on top of the hour, who are great athletes,
Hmm.
but they had fathers who were the worst. They could hit 3 home runs. And it's like, you're better. You need to get that fourth home run and you need this. And they did it around all their friends and parents. And at a certain point, they all quit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessary that they quit, but it was necessary for their own better health. Uh, you never know. I mean, I remember remembering things that people who were there don't even remember. They were so poignant and important to me. And I'd ask my sister, you were there? I said, it was at Thanksgiving.
Right.
No, I didn't remember. So it's don't take anything for granted. Accept everybody as more than you think they may be because there's more you don't know about them. So you look like someone who's really had a lot of experience with individual interaction and have garnered so much from your experiences. So what would you say to others who are a little more challenged or haven't gotten that evolved?
It starts with, and the word that keeps coming, it came up for me throughout this whole conversation, and thankfully I'll save it to the end here, is gratitude. Be grateful for what you have. It's the old saying, and we don't use these sayings anymore because they're kind of rough. But I felt bad because I had no shoes until I met a man with no feet. And but and like I said, that's kind of a harsh comment, but the point is true. Be grateful for what you have. Focus on what you have. A very wise person said that gratitude is the mindset of wealth, because what you focus on is what you get in your life. And so if you're always looking for what's right in your life and what's going well in your life, hey, I had food today. Hey, I have a shelter. housing. I'm better than some people that don't. No, I'm not better than. I'm better off than these some people that don't have food every day, that don't have security of having a home and somewhere to live, and etc. But looking at the positive, what happened positive today, and the more you come from a place of gratitude, the more good stuff shows up to be grateful for. And that's a point in my life, is that, like you said earlier about you either win and you get lessons. That's a mindset of gratitude. You're grateful for, well, you know what, that didn't turn out the way I wanted to, but I learned something. That's an attitude, a mindset that works. And I leave every first session with a client, I always leave, and I just had one yesterday, with, from now on, focus on what you do want. And that'll show, because that's going to show up in your life. And so that's what I would leave everyone with, is be grateful for what you have, and more of it will show up in your life.
Yeah, that's beautiful and so appreciated. And I'll just add a little bit to it, is it's not how many times you fall down, it's how fast you can get back up. And no matter what the disappointment, I know it stings so bad the first day. The first day you get that news that is surprising or disappointing or whatever,
Right.
you just have to understand, in 3 days it'll get easier. In 2 days, I won't feel as bad. So give yourself that extra day or two before getting dramatic. And then I always come back to, I've been through worse and I've overcome it. This will be a stimulus for me to get better. When I lose something, it just makes me want to go back in the game and win something better than it was. And the other thing that comes to mind, I remember meeting this girl at this actually church event, and she was only 12, and she was trying out for the big play down in Denver, the Performing Arts Center, and she came in second, and somebody else got the role. And I said, well, sorry to hear you didn't get the role. And she corrected me. She says, no, this is going to make me available for something I wouldn't have been available for if this wouldn't have happened. A better opportunity is waiting for me. And I thought, how wise can a 12-year-old be? Because most of them say, yeah, right, it was terrible and they should have got me. But it's really flipping the screen to say, okay, what's next? And by a door closing, it allows another door to open up that wouldn't have. And every failure, every disappointment was a road to a better situation. But at the time, you only know what you lost. You didn't know what you're about to get. And most people will be driven by fear of loss instead of greed. They'll fight like hell to keep their cigarettes and their beer and their simple things that no one can take away. But if you said, hey, if you took another job and you added a little income, well, that's work, that's trouble. But anyways, this has, as always, been a wonderful show, Jason. I can't thank you enough. You definitely demonstrate your skill set and your mindset, and not only the way you articulate, but the way you share. So thank you, audience. I look forward to having you back tomorrow when Kelly will be here, and we'll do it all again. So appreciate everybody and everything.